Somewhere in a small apartment in Tokyo, a man is unscrewing the bottom plate of a camera that was made in West Germany in 1959. He's done this so many times he could do it in the dark. He cleans the rangefinder, oils the shutter, listens to it fire. Then he loads a roll of black and white film, lifts the camera to his eye, and walks out to photograph the street. Somewhere in a climate-controlled cabinet in Switzerland, an identical camera, made in the same factory in the same year, sits on a velvet cradle. It hasn't been touched in 11 years. It's never had film loaded in it. Its owner believes that loading film into it would destroy it. These two men have never met. They might be friends if they did, but there's a chance they wouldn't speak to each other at all. Because in the world of vintage camera collecting, they're not on the same side. They're on opposite sides of a war. This is what people keep, and the war inside vintage camera collecting. The object at the center of all of this is a small, dense, beautifully made German camera that almost didn't exist. In 1923, in the town of Wetzlar, an engineer at a microscope factory called Leitz had been tinkering for nearly a decade with an idea his bosses didn't really like. His name was Oscar Barnack. He had asthma. The plate cameras of his era weighed as much as a small dog and needed a tripod for almost everything. Barnack wanted something he could put in his coat pocket and carry into the mountains. So he built one. He took 35mm cinema film, which already existed for movies, turned it on its side, and built a tiny precision camera around it. His employer, Ernst Leitz II, looked at it, and after several years of internal argument, agreed to produce a small test batch. Around 24 prototypes were built and handed out to photographers in 1923, mostly as market research, to see if the world had any appetite for a camera this small. The world did. The camera went into full production. They called it the Leica, a shortening of Leitz camera. And it didn't just succeed. It rewrote what photography could be entirely. Henri Cartier-Bresson used one. So did Robert Capa, the war photographer who carried a Leica through most of the Spanish Civil War. So did most of the people you can think of who took a famous photograph anywhere in the world between roughly 1930 and 1970. By 1954, Leitz released the model that would become the holy object of this entire community, the Leica M3. A rangefinder camera, all brass and chrome, with a viewfinder so clear you can still pick it up today and find yourself slightly emotional about how much glass is involved in something the size of a paperback. The Leica M3 was a consumer camera. Your grandparents might have owned one. Around 220,000 of them were made over the course of the next 12 years, which by camera standards is a lot. They weren't rare then. They were everywhere. Today, that exact same Leica M3, the one your grandfather might have used to photograph your mother as a baby, sells for between $1,800 and $2,800, depending on condition. A clean example with the original lens runs higher. And here's the part that makes the collector world strange. That's the entry-level price. That's where the conversation begins. To understand how this world actually works, you have to understand where the cameras come from now. There aren't really any new vintage Leicas. Every one in circulation already exists. They're held in private collections, in repair shops, in the back rooms of camera dealers, in the bottom drawer of a desk in a house in suburban Ohio that hasn't been opened in 20 years. So the entire economy of vintage film camera collecting is, in a literal sense, an archaeology of forgotten objects. People look in three places. Estate sales, when someone passes away and a family is clearing out a house, are the great myth of this hobby. Everyone in the community has a story about the M3 they found in a shoebox for $40. Most of those stories are true. Some of them are slightly embellished. The truth is, the legendary find is rarer than it used to be, because so many people know to look now. Thrift stores still produce miracles occasionally. A Leica in the donations bin at Goodwill, photographed and posted to Reddit within minutes, picked up for $15 on a Saturday morning, sold for $2,000 on Tuesday. These stories travel. They keep the hunt alive. Then there are the camera fairs, real, physical events in hotel ballrooms in Tokyo and Berlin and Pasadena, where dealers lay out velvet cloths covered in mechanical objects, and serious collectors walk slowly between the tables with loupes in their pockets, looking for the right shutter speed dial, the right engraving, the right kind of wear. Because here's the other thing. There are a lot of fakes, cosmetic fakes, where a cheaper Russian copy is dressed up to look like a real Leica. Frankenstein cameras, built out of bodies and tops and lenses from different decades and sold as original. The community has spent 50 years developing the authentication culture to spot all of this, and you can lose an afternoon on a forum reading collectors argue about whether a particular engraving on a 1957 strap lug is genuine or a reproduction. And then there are the lenses, because the cameras are only half of this story. In 1966, Leitz released a lens called the Noctilux. It was an experimental piece of optics, designed by an engineer named Helmut Marx, built to shoot in conditions almost no other lens could handle. Almost dark rooms, candlelight, the kind of light a normal lens just can't gather. The Noctilux was the first lens ever put into series production with aspherical elements, and those elements had to be hand-ground on a single, specially built machine by a single technician who threw away more glass than he kept. Only 1,757 of them were ever made. The original f1.2 Noctilux now sells for between $25,000 and $50,000 on the secondary market. In good condition, the number drifts higher. Just the lens, not the camera. The lens alone now costs more than most cars on the road outside your window. And this is where the war begins. There are two tribes inside vintage camera collecting, and they don't really like each other. The shooters believe a camera exists to shoot film. An unloaded camera sitting on a shelf isn't a camera, it's a paperweight. The whole point of a Leica M3 is that you can pick it up 60 years after it was made, load a roll of Kodak Tri-X, and walk out and make a photograph that's indistinguishable from one made the year the camera was new. Not using it, they argue, is missing the entire point of what the object was built for. The shelf collectors believe the opposite. A pristine, unused, original condition Leica is a historical artifact. It's a fragment of 20th century industrial design, made by people who are dead in a factory that doesn't make them anymore. Loading film into a $20,000 Noctilux is, to a shelf collector, an act of vandalism. The shutter has a finite number of firings before it needs servicing. The leatherette wears. The brass shows through the black paint. Every photograph you take, they argue, is a small destruction of the object. Neither side is exactly wrong. Both sides think the other side is slightly ridiculous. And the comment sections of every camera collecting forum on the internet have been arguing about this for 30 years without resolution. Underneath the war, there's a different anxiety running through this community right now. And it's about money. 5 years ago, you could buy a clean Leica M3 with a working lens for around $1,200. Today, the same camera is closer to $2,000. The Noctilux that was around $20,000 in 2019 is closer to $35,000 now. Prices haven't crept up. They've roughly doubled or tripled across the board in less than a decade. Nobody can fully agree on why. Part of it is Instagram. A whole generation of photographers, mostly in their 20s and 30s, discovered film around 2018 and started buying cameras that had been depreciating for 40 years. They liked the look of it. They liked the slowness. They liked that a photograph cost something, and so you took it more carefully. Film photography went from a dying medium to an aesthetic movement almost overnight. Part of it is celebrity. When a famous musician is photographed at an airport with a Leica around their neck, the model that musician carries goes up in price within a week. There are spreadsheets tracking this. The community calls them halo cameras. Part of it is simple scarcity. The supply of vintage Leicas is fixed. Every year, a few more disappear into private collections, or get broken beyond repair, or get buried with their owner. The pool shrinks. The demand grows. The question nobody can answer is whether this is a real cultural shift back toward analog craft, or whether it's a nostalgia bubble driven by an aesthetic that'll eventually move somewhere else. The people who bought cameras 3 years ago at the old prices are watching identical cameras sell for triple. Some of them are delighted. Some are furious, because a young photographer who would have been able to afford a Leica in 2018 simply can't now. The thing that brought new blood into the community is the same thing that's locking new blood out of it. The shelf collectors, the ones who buy for investment, are doing extremely well. The shooters, the ones who just wanted to take photographs with a beautiful old camera, are watching the cost of their hobby become something else entirely. And the two tribes have a new reason to look at each other across the room and bitterly disagree. In June of 2022, in Wetzlar, the same German town where the Leica was invented, a single camera went under the hammer. It was a Leica 0 series, number 105, one of those original prototypes Ernst Leitz II had agreed to build back in 1923 as market research. It was never meant to be sold to anyone. It was a trial, an object whose entire purpose was to ask a small group of photographers whether this idea was worth pursuing. The camera had belonged personally to Oscar Barnack, the asthmatic engineer who built it. It sold for 14.4 million euros, around 15 million US dollars. It's the most expensive camera ever sold at public auction. The record still stands. It's tempting to look at all of this, the price spikes, the auction records, the comment section feuds, and conclude that vintage camera collecting is about money. It isn't, really. The money is a symptom of something else. There's a line that gets passed around inside this community. You can argue, the line goes, that film is worse than digital in every measurable way. It's slower, it's more expensive, it's less convenient. There's no good practical reason to shoot it. There's only one reason. It makes you feel something. That's it. That's the whole argument. The shooters and the shelf collectors are fighting about how to honor an object, but the object only matters because of the way it makes the person holding it feel. The shooter who loads a roll of film into a 60-year-old Leica isn't doing it because film is better. They're doing it because it makes them feel like the photograph matters more. The shelf collector who keeps the same camera pristine on a velvet cradle isn't preserving an investment. They're preserving a connection to a particular hand in a particular factory in West Germany in 1959. Both of them are choosing feeling over efficiency. And feeling over efficiency is, in the end, the reason anybody keeps anything. The collectors aren't irrational. They've simply decided, deliberately and consistently, that there are things in the world worth holding onto that don't make sense on a spreadsheet. A small camera made by an asthmatic engineer, a lens designed to see in the dark, a way of taking photographs that nobody needs anymore. It's the same calculation people make about every object they refuse to throw away. The watch their father wore, the book they've read 4 times, the chipped mug they keep choosing over the new ones. None of it makes sense. All of it makes them feel something. That's what people keep, not the object, the feeling. What people keep discovers worlds like this one. A different object, a different community, a different story hiding in plain sight, because some things are worth keeping.